It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And we have Pulitzer Prize winning correspondent Michael Goodwin of the New York Post. Michael, let's first go to RFK Jr. Your reaction, because now he has endorsed President Trump. I agree with John. I mean, to me, the way they have handled him has been disgraceful. And he said that. He said, it's not my family's Democratic Party anymore.
Right. Well, I agree. I agree also, Rita. I think that one of the things that he cited, and it was that they tried to block him from running in the primary. So that's why he became an independent. They basically wouldn't allow him to get on the ballot in any of the states. I mean, this is the Democratic Party as it exists now. And then the other thing that I remain suspicious about in the context of what you and John were just discussing is that they would not provide Secret Service protection for him. Now, given his family's history alone, that should have been sufficient. But apparently it's Homeland Security, Mayorkas, who said no. Now, why? But this had to reach the White House. The White House had to know about this. Why did Joe Biden not say, oh, come on? It's Robert Kennedy. We're not going to take a chance that he gets assassinated. So that's another curious example of what looks to be a secret service that is a little more secret than it is service.
And also, Michael Goodwin, one other thing with RFK Jr., he had 2 armed break-ins in his home recently. He had assailants come into the home, and he was still pleading for Secret Service. They still denied him.
They probably would not have given it to him, but for the shot at Trump.
Absolutely, because it was right after the assassination attempt that he finally got it.
Not before. After Trump.
How sad is that? All the headlines, Judge, that came out of that, too. I mean, they were forced. And same with Trump, too, getting more.
I'm still getting bothered, and we talked about it just before, that they cremated the body of this so-called assassin.
Yeah, that's an interesting...
Later on, Michael Goodwin, I think we have Congressman
Michael
Waltz, and he thinks there might be more people involved in the attempted assassination.
Well, don't forget, too, this was something that shocked me when I learned about it later, that the day before the assassination attempt, the FBI announced it had broken up an Iranian plot to assassinate Trump. And then after the next day, when Crooks makes his attempt, the FBI says, no, there's no connection between the two, even though there were a number, apparently Crooks, the shooter in Pennsylvania, had a number of foreign email addresses on his laptop. So why these things are happening at the same time? Just think of it, too. If Iran or any other foreign country is trying to assassinate a former president and a presidential candidate, why is that not something of greater concern to the White House and to the whole country? But you will see almost no stories about the Iranian attempt to assassinate Donald Trump. Now, it's true that Iran has been trying to assassinate others in the Trump orbit who worked for the administration on especially foreign policy. John Bolton, Mike Pompeo. But Trump is the one who's in the arena now. And you would think that all Americans would say, oh, no, we're not going to stand for a foreign adversary to come into our country and try to assassinate our former president and a current candidate, no matter the party. But you don't hear that. You don't see anything about it.
Michael Goodwin, I'll give you don't forget, in the last 3.5 years under President Biden, the Iranians made hundreds of billions of dollars. Well, if they assassinated President Trump, is President Biden going to do anything?
Well, let's turn it around, John, and ask it this way, and I think the question will answer itself. If they were trying to assassinate Biden, would the New York Times be quiet about it? Wouldn't they play the Russia hoax again and say that this is a foreign plot? where Trump is going to benefit from a foreigner's interference in American elections? I mean, this is clearly an interference in the election. Why are people being quiet about it? Why are we not being told the full scope of it?
You know,
I thought the FBI cared about that interference, and the way to stop the interference was not only to stop the act, but to let the public know so it could be on guard and disregard any information that was tainted by this.
You know, Michael, too, it reminded me, you guys also, remember there was that Pakistani guy who also had crossed the border, too, just right before. Remember? I mean, you got all these things. It's like alarm bells going off all over the place.
Well, I think he's the one the FBI believes was hired by Iran.
Right, that's the Pakistani.
Right. And he gets into the country, is my point. I mean, there's some weird stuff going on here, guys.
Absolutely.
You know?
And if I could just go back to your original question about Robert Kennedy. I think this is a potentially very significant decision for him to endorse Donald Trump. I mean, Andrew Yang, the former mayoral candidate and tech entrepreneur, runs something I think called No Solutions or something like that. Anyway, he put out a note on the potential significance in the battleground states. Mm-hmm. Kennedy didn't have a lot of support, but 1, 2, or 3% shift in the battleground states could swing the election. So this is potentially a big benefit to Donald Trump.
Yeah, absolutely. Judge Weinberg.
Michael, I want to ask you about your great column today. Fundamentally, you asked the question, what does Kamala Harris stand for? Because nobody knows, based on the speech she gave. Everybody said how wonderful she delivered it, but it was all platitudes, cliches, and empty fluff. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think that is a concern. And Richard, I think people of a certain generation will get the opening. Will the real Kamala Harris please stand up?
Absolutely. I watched that show, Michael. But
look, I do think she has gotten this far. And once again, the media is allowing it, is indulging her with their joyfulness. I mean, the cover story in the New York Times today, the cover headline, is shocking in its adulation of nothingness. How she's making this big bet on the possibility of anything. I mean, just as though she's some kind of darling running in a race. I mean, this is the presidential campaign. This is not Miss America. But look, I do think that she is doing this for one of two reasons, right? Keeping her positions quiet. A potentially legitimate one is that until a month ago, she thought she was going to be riding on Joe Biden's coattails the whole way, and that he and the bureaucracy around him would make decisions. She may or may not be involved in them, but it wasn't necessary for her to stake out her own points. The other one, of course, is that she doesn't have any positions, and she hasn't thought these things through. And the third one, I think, is most likely she doesn't want the public to know her positions, that they would be so unpopular and such a ripe target for not only Trump but for ridicule, that she's going to keep them as secret as long as possible. And I think that's where the media comes into this. Are they going to aid her in this quest to sneak into the White House in this kind of hopey-changey, 2.0 way, where we have to elect her before we know what she wants to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Michael Goodwin, thank you so much. A great column and great perspective. We always love having you on, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you all.
Well, thank you.